You're too soft to make it on your own. My name is Connor. I'm 42 years old, and I've spent the last 16 years married to a woman who stopped seeing me as a man somewhere along the way. I worked in commercial real estate appraisal, steady work, decent money, nothing flashy. But to her, steady meant weak. We sat in the kitchen that night. She leaned against the counter with her arms crossed, staring at me like I was a disappointment she'd been carrying around too long. I just suggested we take a weekend trip, something simple to reconnect. Her response was that line, too soft. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I just sat there with my coffee getting cold, wondering when exactly I'd become invisible to her. It wasn't the first time she'd said something like that. Over the years, there'd been 100 small cuts. The way she'd roll her eyes when I chose compromise over confrontation. The tone she used when explaining things to me, like I was slow. The way she'd interrupt me at dinners with friends, finishing my sentences with something sharper, funnier, more decisive than whatever I was going to say. She worked in marketing at a tech startup downtown. Long hours, high pressure, lots of talk about disruption and innovation. I respected the work, but somewhere in there she started believing that aggressive meant strong and patient meant spineless. I looked at her standing there, waiting for me to apologize or defend myself. Instead, I thought about the previous weekend. I'd spent Saturday fixing the deck she'd been complaining about for months. Sunday, I'd driven 3 hours to help her sister move furniture. When I got home, she was on the couch with her laptop, barely looked up. "You hear me?" she said. "I heard you." She shook her head and walked out of the room. I sat there alone, staring at the scratches on the kitchen table from when we'd first moved in, back when we still liked each other. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the years in my head. The late nights I'd worked to help pay off her student loans. The times I'd covered her mistakes without making her feel small. The 1,000 ways I'd tried to be solid ground for her. And what I got in return was contempt. I got up around 2 in the morning and stood in the hallway outside our bedroom. Through the door, I could hear her breathing, steady and unbothered. It occurred to me then that she'd probably sleep just fine if I disappeared tomorrow. The thought didn't make me angry. It made me clear-headed. We'd met in college, both of us 23 and figuring things out. She was ambitious, driven, always 3 steps ahead in every conversation. I liked that about her. I was more measured, the kind of person who thought things through before jumping. She used to say we balanced each other out. The first few years of marriage were good. We bought a small house in Minneapolis, fixed it up together, talked about kids someday. I worked my way up in appraisal, got my certifications, built a reputation for being thorough and fair. She bounced between jobs, chasing the next big opportunity. I supported every move, every pivot, every late-night work crisis that meant I'd be eating dinner alone again. Her career took off about 5 years in. Suddenly she was traveling for conferences, networking with people who used words like synergy and leverage without irony. I was happy for her, proud even. But something shifted. She started looking at me differently, like I was a relic from a simpler time she'd outgrown. My brother noticed it before I did. He pulled me aside at a family barbecue 2 years ago and asked if everything was okay at home. I told him it was fine, just busy. He didn't look convinced, but he let it go. The cracks started showing in small ways. She'd make plans without telling me, then act annoyed when I had a conflict. She'd talk about her coworkers constantly, how smart they were, how driven, how they didn't settle for mediocrity. I never asked if she was comparing them to me, but the answer was in her tone. Money became a weapon. We made about the same amount, but she acted like hers mattered more because it came from a dynamic company. When I suggested we invest in a rental property, something I knew inside and out, she dismissed it as too slow, too boring. Instead, she wanted to dump everything into some crypto venture her boss was excited about. I said no. She called me risk-averse. I thought about my parents sometimes. My dad worked at a lumberyard for 40 years, came home tired but steady. My mom taught second grade and baked bread on Sundays. They weren't flashy people, but they were solid. They built something that lasted. I wanted that, but my wife wanted something else. She wanted excitement, validation, proof that she was exceptional. And I wasn't part of that story anymore. The weekend before she said I was too soft, I'd asked her to go for a walk with me. Just around the neighborhood, no agenda. She said she had emails to catch up on. I went alone. It was the first time I realized I preferred it that way. The morning after she called me soft, I woke up with a strange kind of clarity. The hurt was still there, but underneath it was something colder, sharper. I wasn't angry. I was done. I got dressed, made coffee, and started moving through the house like I was taking inventory. 16 years of shared space, and most of it felt like hers. The furniture she'd picked out, the art on the walls, the books on the shelves. I'd adapted to all of it, made myself smaller to fit into her vision of what our life should look like. She came downstairs around 8, already on her phone. She poured coffee without looking at me, scrolled through emails while standing at the counter. It was like I wasn't even there. "I'm leaving," I said. She glanced up barely. "What?" "I'm moving out." That got her attention. She set her phone down, stared at me like I'd just said something in a foreign language. "What are you talking about?" "I'm done," I said. "I'll stay with my brother until I figure out the next step." Her face shifted from confusion to irritation. "You're being dramatic." "I'm not." "Connor, come on. I said one thing, and you're going to blow up our entire life over it?" "One thing," I repeated. "Right." She crossed her arms, leaned back against the counter. "So what? You're going to run away because I hurt your feelings?" There it was. The dismissal, the belittling, the assumption that my reaction was the problem, not her years of contempt. "I'm not running," I said. "I'm choosing myself." She laughed, but it was forced. "Okay, fine. Go stay at your brother's for a few days. Clear your head. But don't act like this is some big statement." I didn't respond. I just went upstairs, packed a bag with clothes, my laptop, and a few things I cared about. When I came back down, she was still in the kitchen, staring at her phone like nothing had happened. I walked past her, opened the front door, and stopped. For a second, I thought she might say something. Apologize, ask me to stay, acknowledge that maybe she'd pushed too far, but she didn't. I loaded my bag into the car, sat behind the wheel, and looked back at the house. It was a nice house. We'd painted the trim together, planted flowers in the front yard, hosted dinners with friends who probably wondered how we'd ended up together in the first place. I pulled out of the driveway and didn't look back again. My brother lived 20 minutes away. I called him on the way, told him I needed a place to crash. He didn't ask questions, just said the guest room was mine as long as I needed it. When I got there, I felt lighter than I had in years. The first week at my brother's place was quiet. He worked construction, left early, came home tired. We'd eat dinner together, watch whatever game was on, and he'd give me space to think. He didn't push me to talk, didn't offer advice unless I asked. It was exactly what I needed. My wife called twice the first day. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. First one was defensive, saying I was overreacting, that we could work through this if I stopped being so sensitive. The second was angrier, accusing me of abandoning her without even trying to fix things. I texted her once, "I need time. I'll reach out when I'm ready." She responded immediately, "This is childish." I didn't reply. By the end of the first week, she shifted tactics. She called my brother, asked if I was okay, said she was worried about me. He told her I was fine, and that maybe she should give me the space I asked for. She didn't like that. She started texting me about logistics, bills, the mortgage, things that needed to be handled. I responded to those, kept it brief, factual. She tried to turn every conversation into something bigger, but I didn't take the bait. At work, I kept my head down. My boss noticed something was off, asked if everything was okay at home. I told him I was dealing with some personal things, but that it wouldn't affect my work. He nodded, left it alone. I started going through our finances in the evenings. We'd always kept separate accounts for day-to-day stuff, but we had a joint savings account and shared ownership of the house. I pulled up statements, old emails, documents I'd filed away over the years. I wanted to understand exactly where I stood if this turned into something permanent. What I found surprised me. We'd been putting money into that savings account for years, but over the last 18 months, there'd been a series of withdrawals. Not huge amounts, but regular. 1,000 here, 1,500 there. I didn't remember us discussing any of it. I called the bank, asked for a full transaction history. When the statement came through, I saw her name on every withdrawal. She'd been pulling money out and never mentioned it. I didn't confront her right away. I just sat with it, trying to figure out what it meant. Maybe she'd been covering expenses I didn't know about. Maybe she'd been planning something and didn't want to involve me. Or maybe she'd been preparing for this longer than I realized. 2 weeks in, she showed up at my brother's place. He was at work, and I was sitting on the porch with a beer when her car pulled up. She got out, walked up the driveway like she was visiting a sick relative. "This is ridiculous," she said. "You've made your point. Come home." "I'm not coming home." "Connor, stop, you're being stubborn." "I'm being clear." She crossed her arms, looked at me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "What do you want from me, an apology?" "Fine. I'm sorry I said you're soft. Happy?" "It's not about one thing you said." "Then what is it about?" I stood up, looked at her straight on. "It's about the fact that you don't respect me. Haven't for a long time. And I'm not going to keep pretending that's okay." Her face hardened. "So that's it? You're just giving up?" "No," I said. "I'm finally choosing something better." She stood there for a moment, waiting for me to change my mind. When I didn't, she turned around, got in her car, and left. A month after I moved out, I started looking at my life differently. Not just what I'd lost, but what I'd been avoiding. I'd spent years being the steady one, the reliable one, the guy who kept things running while everyone else chased their ambitions. And I'd convinced myself that was enough. But it wasn't. I'd always been interested in real estate beyond appraisal. I understood property value, market trends, financing structures. I knew how to read a deal, spot potential, see what others missed. But I'd never acted on it, never took the risk. My wife used to call that cautiousness. My brother called it patience. I started looking at properties, small commercial spaces, buildings with good bones but bad management, places that needed someone with vision and follow-through. I spent evenings running numbers, talking to brokers, learning the financing side of things I'd only observed from a distance. There was a building downtown that caught my attention. 3 stories, built in the 80s, currently leased to a mix of small businesses and a nonprofit. The owner was older, looking to sell, tired of dealing with tenant issues and maintenance. It wasn't glamorous, but it was solid. Good location, steady income, room to improve. I called the broker, set up a walkthrough. The place needed work, new HVAC, updated electrical, cosmetic fixes. But the foundation was sound. I could see what it could become. The asking price was higher than I could afford on my own, but I had options. I had savings, equity in the house, and a clean credit history. I started talking to lenders, putting together a proposal. My brother thought I was crazy. "You're in the middle of a separation and you're trying to buy a building?" "I'm in the middle of figuring out who I am without her," I said. "This is part of it." He didn't argue after that. I kept working, kept saving, kept moving forward. I didn't talk to my wife about any of it. We were communicating through a mediator now, working out the details of the separation. She wanted to keep the house, buy me out. I agreed. I didn't want to be tied to that place anymore. During one of the mediation sessions, she asked what I was planning to do with my share of the equity. I told her I was investing it. She smirked, said something about me finally taking a risk. I didn't respond. 3 months after I moved out, I closed on the building. It took everything I had: savings, the buyout from the house, a loan that made my stomach turn when I signed the papers. But it was mine. I stood in the lobby on my first day as the owner, looked around at the scuffed floors and outdated fixtures, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: pride. I got to work. I hired a contractor I trusted, prioritized the repairs that mattered, and started building relationships with the tenants. I wasn't trying to flip the place or turn it into something trendy. I just wanted to run it well, make it a space people wanted to be in. My wife found out about it through mutual friends. She called me, demanded to know why I hadn't told her. I said it wasn't her business anymore. She hung up. I didn't care. I was done trying to justify myself to someone who'd already decided I wasn't enough. For the first time in a long time, I was building something that was entirely mine. By the 5th month, the building was coming together. The HVAC was replaced, the electrical upgraded, the common areas repainted. I'd renegotiated leases with tenants who'd been paying under market rate for years, not by gouging them, but by offering fair terms with actual maintenance and responsiveness. Word spread and I started getting inquiries from other businesses looking for space. I hired a property manager, someone with experience who could handle the day-to-day while I focused on the bigger picture. I was still working my appraisal job, but nights and weekends were spent at the building. It didn't feel like work. It felt like building something that mattered. My brother stopped asking if I was okay. He could see it. I was better than okay. I started running into people I knew around town. Old coworkers, friends from college, people who'd known me and my wife as a couple. Most of them were awkward about it, asking vague questions about how I was doing, clearly uncomfortable. I kept it simple, told them I was good, that I was working on something new. One of them mentioned seeing my wife at a bar downtown with some guy from her office. I didn't react, didn't care. Whatever she was doing, it had nothing to do with me anymore. The divorce paperwork came through in the 6th month. No kids, no major assets left to split, just signatures and a sense of relief. I signed everything, sent it back, and moved on. Around that same time, I got a call from one of my tenants. They were expanding, needed more space, and wanted to know if I had anything available. I didn't, but I started looking at adjacent properties, seeing if there was room to grow. That's when I realized something. I wasn't just running a building. I was building a business, and I was good at it. One evening, I was at the building late, finishing up some paperwork in the small office I'd set up on the 1st floor. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Connor? It was her. I didn't say anything. I need to talk to you. We don't have anything to talk about. Please, can we meet? Just for coffee or something? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no, hang up, be done with it. But another part of me was curious. Not because I wanted her back, but because I wanted to see if she'd finally figured out what she'd lost. Fine, I said. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. The coffee place on 5th. She agreed. I hung up. The next day I finished work early, stopped by the building to check on a repair, and then headed to the coffee shop. I got there first, ordered a black coffee, and sat by the window. She walked in 10 minutes later. She looked the same, put together, confident, the version of herself she showed the world. But there was something different in her eyes, something uncertain. She sat down across from me, didn't order anything. "Thanks for meeting me," she said. I nodded, didn't say anything. I wanted to apologize, really apologize. Not just for what I said that night, but for everything. The way I treated you, the way I made you feel. I was wrong. I listened, didn't interrupt. I've been thinking a lot about us, about what went wrong. And I realized that I pushed you away because I thought you weren't ambitious enough. But you were. You just did things differently than I did. She paused, waiting for me to respond. "Okay," I said. She leaned forward, her voice quieter now. "I heard you bought a building downtown." I did. That's really impressive, Connor. I mean it." I didn't say anything. "I was wrong about you, about a lot of things, and I know I don't deserve another chance, but you don't," I said. She blinked, sat back. "What? You don't deserve another chance? You're right about that." Her face shifted, something between hurt and anger. "So that's it? You're just going to shut me out? I'm going to move on, same thing I've been doing for the last 6 months. Connor, come on, we had 16 years together. That has to mean something. It did. Past tense. She stared at me, her jaw tight. You've changed. Yeah, I said. I have. She stood up, grabbed her purse. I hope you're happy with yourself. I am. She walked out without looking back. I finished my coffee, paid the bill, and left. I had work to do. That evening, I was back at the building when I saw her car pull up outside. I watched from the window as she got out, looked up at the 3-story structure, and stood there for a long moment. She didn't come in, just stared, like she was trying to process what she was seeing. One of my tenants walked past her on the way in, nodded politely. She didn't respond. I didn't go outside. Didn't need to. She was seeing exactly what I'd built without her, and that was enough. After a few minutes, she got back in her car and drove away. I turned back to my desk, back to the work that mattered now. The months that followed were some of the best I'd had in years. The building was running smoothly, generating solid income, and I'd started looking at a second property. My reputation in the local real estate community was growing, not because I was flashy, but because I was reliable, fair, and knew what I was doing. I ran into her one more time about a year after the divorce. I was at a restaurant downtown with some colleagues, celebrating closing a deal on another property. She was there with friends, spotted me across the room. I saw her look, saw the recognition, the hesitation. She didn't come over. I didn't expect her to. I heard through the grapevine that she'd left her job, started working somewhere else. Apparently things at the startup hadn't worked out the way she'd hoped. I didn't take any satisfaction in it. It just was. My life kept moving forward. I stayed close with my brother, reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with, started dating again. Nothing serious, just exploring what it meant to be myself without carrying someone else's expectations. I thought about her sometimes, about the years we spent together, about the version of myself I'd been back then. I didn't miss it. I didn't regret leaving. Looking back, the consequences she faced weren't something I engineered. They were natural. She built her life around ambition and image, and when those things didn't pan out the way she'd expected, she had to face the fact that she'd burned the one relationship that had been solid. She lost someone who would have been there through anything, and she realized it too late. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to prove to myself that I was capable of more than she ever believed. And I did. Some people spend their whole lives chasing validation from others, trying to prove they're strong enough, smart enough, exceptional enough. I used to be one of them. Not anymore. Don't wait up, girls' night. I stared at the text for a long moment. It was 9 p.m. on a Friday. No advance notice, no mention of which friends. Just those 4 words, like I was supposed to nod and accept it without question. My name's David. I'm 32 years old and I work in quality control at Fairwind Logistics here in Louisville. I spend my days making sure shipping manifests match reality, catching discrepancies before they become problems. Funny how that skill started bleeding into my personal life. I typed back, I won't. Her name's Angela. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter and waited. 9 missed calls in the first 3 minutes. I didn't answer a single one. I just watched the screen light up over and over, Karen's name flashing like an alarm. The calls stopped. Then the texts started rolling in. Who is Angela? Answer your phone. David, this isn't funny. I left them all on read and went to the fridge for a beer. 37 minutes after I sent that text, headlights swept across the living room wall. I heard her car door slam, then her footsteps pounding up the front walk. The door flew open and Karen stood there, face flushed, eyes wild. Who the hell is Angela? I took a slow sip of my beer. I thought you were out with the girls. Answer me. You first. She stepped inside and slammed the door behind her. I'm not playing games, David. Who is she? There is no Angela, I said. But it's interesting that you drove home in a panic when you thought there was. Her mouth opened, then closed. For just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Not relief. Calculation. "That's sick," she said. "You're sick. You know that?" I didn't respond. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same woman who'd been pulling away from me for months. The woman who started password protecting her phone. The woman who suddenly had a lot of late meetings and new friends I'd never met. The woman who called me paranoid every time I asked a simple question. She was still standing there, breathing hard, waiting for me to fold. I didn't. "Go back to your girls' night," I said quietly. "I'll be here." She stared at me like I'd just become a stranger. Maybe I had. Maybe that's what happens when you stop pretending everything's fine. It hadn't always been like this. When Karen and I got married 4 years ago, we talked about everything. We stayed up late making plans, dreaming about the life we'd build together. She used to leave me notes on the bathroom mirror before she left for work. Small things. "Love you," or "Don't forget to smile today." I kept a few of them in my wallet for the first year. Then something shifted. I can't pinpoint exactly when. Maybe it was gradual, or maybe I just didn't want to see it. She started working longer hours at the marketing firm downtown. New projects, she said. Big clients. I understood. I respected her ambition. But the late nights became a pattern, and the pattern became normal, and normal became a wall I couldn't see over anymore. She made new friends, co-workers mostly. Women she'd mention in passing but never introduce me to. "Oh, you wouldn't know her." Just someone from the office. I suggested we all grab dinner sometime. Maybe get to know the people she spent so much time with. She said they were work friends, not social friends. Like that was supposed to make sense. Her phone became an extension of her hand. Face down on the table during dinner. Screen angled away from me when she scrolled. Password changed from our wedding anniversary to something I didn't know. When I asked why, she said it was for security. When I asked why she needed security from me, she called me controlling. I wasn't controlling, I was just paying attention. The Friday night texts started 3 months ago. Always last minute, always vague. Girls' night. Drinks with Stephanie. Dinner with the team. I'd text back something supportive, something normal, and she'd come home after midnight smelling like wine and offering no details. If I asked how it went, she'd say, "Fine," and go straight to the shower. My dad used to say you can't talk someone out of a lie they need to believe. He worked in construction his whole life, built half the houses in our neighborhood with his own hands. He taught me that solid foundations matter, that you can't patch over rot and expect it to hold. I didn't understand what he meant until I started feeling the floor shift under my own marriage. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted there to be some explanation that made sense, something I was missing because I was too close to see it clearly. But every time I brought it up, Karen made me feel like I was imagining things, like I was the problem. Maybe I started to believe her, until tonight. I sat on the couch and watched her pace the living room. She was still trying to flip this, still trying to make me the villain. "You lied to me," she said, voice shaking. "You made up a name just to mess with my head. I sent you a text," I said. "Same way you sent me one, no warning, no explanation, just a statement." "That's different." "How?" She stopped pacing. "Because I told you where I was going." "You told me girls' night. That's not where. That's not who. That's just words." "I don't have to report every detail of my life to you, David." "No," I agreed. "You don't. But you drove home in 37 minutes because you thought I was with someone else. That tells me something." Her face went red. "You're twisting this. I'm just pointing out what happened." She grabbed her purse off the chair and dug through it, pulled out her phone, started scrolling like she was looking for proof of something. I didn't ask what. I already knew she wouldn't find anything that made this better. She'd been so careful. Every late night, every vague excuse, every time she turned her screen away from me, it all added up to a pattern I couldn't ignore anymore. "Who were you with tonight?" I asked. "I told you. Friends. Names. She hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but I caught it. Stephanie, and Lauren, and a couple other people from work. Lauren's out of town, I said. She posted pictures from Nashville this morning. Karen's jaw tightened. I meant someone else, I don't remember everyone's name. But you were just with them. God, David, why are you doing this? I'm asking a question. She threw her phone onto the couch. Because you don't trust me. You never have. You've been looking for an excuse to accuse me of something, and tonight you finally made one up. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, hands folded. I didn't make anything up. I sent a text. You filled in the rest. Her breathing was shallow now, eyes darting toward the door like she was calculating whether to leave again. But she didn't. She just stood there, caught between doubling down and admitting the truth. I'm going to bed, she finally said. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. She walked past me toward the stairs and I let her go. I wasn't going to chase her. Not tonight. I'd spent months chasing answers that she refused to give, and I was done running in circles. Whatever was happening, whatever she was hiding, it was going to come out eventually. It always does. I just didn't know yet that it would happen a lot sooner than either of us expected. She didn't go to bed. She stayed upstairs for maybe 10 minutes, then came back down wearing different clothes, yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt. She looked smaller somehow, like she'd peeled off the armor she'd been wearing when she stormed in. But her eyes were still hard. We need to talk, she said. I was still on the couch. I hadn't moved. I'm listening. She sat on the chair across from me, not next to me. That told me everything. You embarrassed me tonight, she said. You made me look like a fool. I didn't do anything. You lied about another woman. There is no other woman, Karen, I already told you that. But you wanted me to think there was. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I did. Why? Because I wanted to see what you'd do, and you came home in a panic. Her face twisted. So this was a test? No, it was a mirror. She stood up fast, started pacing again. You're unbelievable. You sit here acting like some kind of detective, trying to catch me in something that doesn't exist. Then tell me where you were tonight. I already did. Tell me again. No. She crossed her arms. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to defend myself every time I leave the house. That's not a marriage, David. That's a prison. I'm not trying to lock you up, I just want the truth. The truth? She laughed, sharp and bitter. The truth is, you've been paranoid for months. You check my phone. You ask where I'm going. You make comments every time I get dressed up or stay late at work. You've been suffocating me. You changed your password because you wouldn't stop invading my privacy. I never touched your phone, but you wanted to. I didn't have an answer for that. She was right. I did want to. I wanted to know what she was hiding, who she was texting, why she looked at me like I was a stranger lately. But I didn't do it because I wasn't that guy. I wasn't the husband who snooped. I was the husband who tried to trust his wife, even when every instinct told me not to. Karen, I said quietly, if nothing's going on, then why are you this angry? Because you accused me. I didn't accuse you of anything. I just replied to your text. By making up a fake woman. And you lost your mind. She stopped pacing. Her voice dropped. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what I've been dealing with. Then tell me. She shook her head. You wouldn't understand. Try me. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker behind her eyes. Not guilt, not regret, just exhaustion, like she was tired of pretending. But then the wall came back up and she turned away. I'm going to stay at my sister's tonight, she said. Running away doesn't fix this. Neither does whatever you're doing. She grabbed her purse and her keys and walked out. The door closed softly this time, no slam. I sat there in the silence and felt the floor shift under me again. She was good at this. good at turning everything around, making me feel like the bad guy. But I wasn't buying it anymore. Something was wrong, and I was going to find out what. Saturday morning, I woke up on the couch. My neck hurt, and my head felt heavy. I checked my phone. No messages from Karen, no missed calls. Just silence. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. I kept replaying last night in my head, trying to figure out where I went wrong. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I hadn't gone wrong at all. I'd just stopped playing along. I opened my laptop and pulled up our bank statements. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I started scrolling through the charges from the last few months. Dinners I didn't remember. Bar tabs on nights she said she was working late. Ride-share charges that dropped her off at addresses I didn't recognize. One address kept showing up. Same part of town, same time frame. Late Friday nights. I copied the address and plugged it into a map. It was a condo complex near downtown. Expensive, new construction. Not the kind of place you go for girls' night unless one of your friends lives there. I grabbed my phone and opened her social media. She didn't post much, but I scrolled back through the last few months anyway. Pictures with co-workers at office events. A few selfies in her car. One photo from a restaurant I didn't recognize, tagged with a location downtown. The same part of town as the condo. Then I saw a comment on one of her posts. A guy named Trevor. He worked in her building. I remembered her mentioning him once or twice in passing, nothing specific. Just Trevor from work, or Trevor's handling that project. I clicked on his profile. It was mostly private, but his profile picture showed a guy in his late 20s, clean-cut, smiling like he had nothing to hide. I went back to the bank statements and searched for charges near that condo. Dinners, drinks, one charge at a wine bar called the Brass Vine. I looked it up. Small place, romantic, not somewhere you take a group. I called my friend Joel. He's a paralegal, works in family law. We grew up together, played baseball in high school. He answered on the second ring. David, what's up? I need advice. Legal or personal? Both. He sighed. Okay. Shoot. I told him everything. The texts, the late nights, the way Karen flipped the script on me last night, the bank charges, the condo address. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a moment. You recording any of this? He asked. No. You should. If this goes where I think it's going, you're going to need proof. Proof of what? Whatever she's hiding. If you file for divorce and if there's infidelity involved, documentation matters, especially in Kentucky. It's not a no-fault state. Adultery can impact settlements. I rubbed my face. I don't even know if that's what this is. But you think it is? Yeah. Then you need to be smart. Don't accuse her of anything. Don't confront her. Just document dates, times, charges. If she comes at you again, record the conversation. Make sure you're in a one-party consent state first. I am. Good. Then do it. I thanked him and hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. This wasn't just about catching her anymore. This was about protecting myself. About making sure that when everything fell apart, I wasn't the one left with nothing. I pulled up my phone's voice recorder app and tested it. Clear audio, easy to use. I saved it to my home screen. Then I waited. Karen came home Sunday afternoon. I was in the garage organizing tools when I heard her car pull into the driveway. She walked in through the side door, set her bag down on the washing machine, and stood there looking at me like she was waiting for something. Hey, she said. Hey, can we talk? Sure. We went inside. She sat at the kitchen table. I stayed standing, leaning against the counter. I wasn't trying to intimidate her. I just didn't want to sit across from her and pretend everything was normal. I'm sorry about Friday night, she said. I overreacted. I nodded. Okay. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I just felt attacked, like you were testing me. I was. Her eyes narrowed. Why? Because something's been off for months, Karen. You know it, I know it, and every time I try to talk to you about it, you shut me down. That's not true. It is. She looked away, jaw tight. I've been stressed at work. That's all. I'm not hiding anything. Then why did you panic when I mentioned Angela? Because it sounded like you were cheating. But I wasn't, and you knew that the second you got here. But you didn't calm down. You got defensive. She stood up. I don't have to sit here and be interrogated. I'm not interrogating you, I'm asking questions. Same thing. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I didn't open it. I just held it. Who's Trevor? Her face went pale, just for a second. Then she recovered. He's a coworker. Why? You spend a lot of time with him. We work on the same projects. At the Brass Vine? She blinked. What? The wine bar downtown. You went there 3 times in the last 2 months. Always on a Friday night. Always charged to our account. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked at the phone in my hand. Are you tracking me? I'm looking at our bank statements. That's not tracking, that's just paying attention. You're unbelievable. Who were you with, Karen? It doesn't matter. It does to me. She grabbed her bag off the table. I'm not doing this. Yes, you are. I unlocked my phone and opened the voice recorder app. I didn't hide it. I held it up so she could see. We're going to have this conversation, and it's going to be on record. Her face went red. You're recording me? I'm recording us. That's illegal. Kentucky's a one-party consent state. I don't need your permission. She stared at me, and I saw the exact moment she realized she'd walked into a corner. She could leave, but that would look like guilt. She could fight, but everything she said would be documented. She could lie, but I already had enough to call her on it. You've been planning this, she said quietly. No, I've been protecting myself. Her hands shook as she set her bag back down. Fine. You want the truth? Trevor and I have been spending time together, but it's not what you think. Then what is it? She didn't answer. She just stared at the phone in my hand, realizing too late that she'd already said too much. And I realized something too. This wasn't just about catching her anymore. This was about watching her unravel in real time, knowing that every word was proof I could use when the time came. I kept recording. Her voice cracked. Turn that off. No. David, please. Tell me the truth, Karen. All of it. She looked at the phone, then at me, and I saw the calculation in her eyes. She was trying to figure out how much I already knew, how much she could still hide. But she'd already slipped. She'd already admitted Trevor's name. She'd already confirmed she'd been lying. We're friends, she said finally. That's it. Friends who meet at wine bars late on Friday nights. Yes. Friends who you never mentioned to me. Because I knew you'd react like this. Like what? Like a husband who wants to know why his wife is lying to him. Her face twisted, and for a second I thought she might cry. But she didn't. She just stood there, trapped by her own words, knowing that everything she said was being recorded and couldn't be taken back. I'm done, I said quietly. What? I'm done with this, with you, with pretending we're okay when we're not. She took a step toward me. David, wait. I waited. For months. I gave you every chance to be honest with me, and you lied every single time. I didn't cheat on you. Maybe not, but you were heading there and you know it. Her face crumpled, not in sadness, in anger. You set me up. I held up a mirror. You just didn't like what you saw. I stopped the recording and pocketed my phone. She stood there breathing hard, looking at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. Maybe I was. Maybe that's what happens when you finally stop letting people walk all over you. I'll be staying somewhere else, I said. You can have the house for now. We'll figure out the rest later. I left that night, packed a bag and drove to Joel's place. He let me crash on his couch without asking too many questions. Over the next few weeks, I handed the recording and the bank statements to a divorce attorney. Karen tried to fight it at first, claimed I manipulated her, that the recording was entrapment, but the attorney just smiled and said the law didn't work that way. The divorce went through in 6 months. I kept the house. She kept her secrets. Trevor, it turned out, had a wife of his own. When his wife found out about the late-night meetings, she filed too. Karen ended up losing her job shortly after, not because of the affair, but because the company didn't appreciate the drama spilling into the office. Last I heard, she moved back in with her sister. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt lighter. Like I'd been carrying weight I didn't know was there, and someone finally told me I could set it down. I still work at Fairwind Logistics, still catch discrepancies before they become problems. I started running in the mornings, fixed up the house, reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with. I even went on a date a few months ago. Nothing serious, just coffee. But it reminded me what it felt like to talk to someone who didn't make me question my own sanity. Karen sent me a text once, months after everything was finalized. "I'm sorry," it said. I read it, didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Some people spend their whole lives pretending everything's fine, even when the foundation's rotting underneath them. I'm not one of those people anymore. I learned the hard way that the truth doesn't always fix things, but at least it lets you see clearly enough to walk away.